Welcome back to the Cozy Kitchen. We named it the Cozy Kitchen because I'm making a lot happen in this small amount of space, and it's all for you. Today, we're going to be making a dish that brings me way back to childhood. It's something that my mother would make a lot for my sister and I growing up. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't always love it, but I love it now. Today, we are making shepherd's pie. The shepherd's pie that I'm going to be making today is not the traditional shepherd's pie recipe. Let me just start right there. For those of you who don't know or haven't seen my previous videos, my grandmother on my father's side, her family's from Sicily, and I grew up with that Italian influence and love for all things Italian cuisine. So a lot of my cooking has Italian influence. Shepherd's pie is a traditional dish that comes from Great Britain. And it just so happens that my mom is English and Irish. I felt like it was only fitting that I take this dish from over here, add a little bit from over here, and make this really fun version of shepherd's pie. So today's shepherd's pie is my take on shepherd's pie. I don't want to be bashed. This isn't a shepherd's pie. This is my shepherd's pie. And that's what I'm showing you today, okay? Shepherd's pie now has become one of my favorite recipes because you get the carbs, you get the protein, you get the vegetables all kind of mixed together in this really nice and cohesive way. And this dish is something that you can make early on in the week and it will last you for a few days for dinner. So it's great to have, especially if you're serving for a lot of people or you just want leftovers. This is one of those dishes that you're absolutely going to want to put on your weekly rotation. One thing that you're going to definitely want to have is a nice casserole dish. Similar to a lasagna, we're going to be building layers. The first layer is going to be the rice, second layer is going to be the turkey, third layer is going to be the corn, and then the final layer is going to be the sweet potatoes. We'll top it off with some chopped walnuts and basil, and then we'll eat. The first thing that you're going to want to do is get a nice deep pot, which I have on my stove over there. Right now I have some hot water going on the stove. We're going to bring the water to a boil. We're going to boil our sweet potatoes, and then we're going to mash them up. As the water starts to come to a boil, you're also going to want to preheat the oven to 425 degrees. I have 5 small sweet potatoes that have peeled and sliced up. They were small to medium-sized sweet potatoes. Now I'm going to just cut them up into bite-sized pieces, toss them into the water and boil them for about 12 minutes until they're nice and soft. Then we're going to set them aside, mash them up just with a fork, throw in some unsalted butter and a little bit of nutmeg and salt. And then that's going to be one layer of the shepherd's pie done. My sweet potatoes are all sliced up and ready to go in the water. I'm going to drop them into the boiling water for 12 minutes. So my oven is at 425 degrees, which means it is time to put the corn right into the oven. I just used 1 can of corn kernels that I drained and then poured onto this tray. I hit the corn with a little bit of salt, tossed it in some olive oil. We're going to put it in the oven. The corn's going to roast at 425 degrees for about 20 minutes or so. Corn is about to go in the oven. While the corn is in the oven roasting and the sweet potatoes are boiling away, it's a good time to get your other ingredients ready, including 1 shallot, and we're going to just give it a rough chop. My shallot is chopped and my sweet potatoes have been boiling now for 12 minutes. They're ready to come out of the water. I just took my sweet potatoes out of the boiling water. I'm going to set them aside, let them cool. They're still steaming right now. I'm going to let them cool for a few minutes. Then we're going to hit them with just a little bit of salt, some nutmeg, some unsalted butter, mash them all together just with a fork, and then cover them and set them aside until we're ready to assemble our shepherd's pie. While the sweet potatoes start to cool off, now is the perfect time to take the corn out. I just took it out of the oven. I'm going to toss it around on this tray, then put it back in the oven for another 10 minutes. My sweet potatoes have been cooling for about 5 minutes now. You're going to want to make sure that you throw in that unsalted butter into the sweet potatoes while the sweet potatoes are still warm, because we want the unsalted butter to melt as we mash up those sweet potatoes. We're going to add in about a teaspoon of nutmeg, sprinkle of salt, mash it all up. It's okay if the sweet potatoes aren't completely mashed, but you want to make sure that they're, for the most part, that nice consistency, because we want to spread them out and layer them. Now that my sweet potatoes are all nice and mashed, we're going to set that aside, cover them, and just keep them over there wherever they need to go. Just keep them out, cover them, and then we'll bring it out when we're ready to assemble our shepherd's pie. My corn has been in the oven now for 20 minutes. So we're about to take the corn out of the oven. The oven is going to stay on after the corn comes out. We're going to keep it at 425 because once the shepherd's pie is assembled, we are going to bake the shepherd's pie and then we'll eat. I just took my corn out of the oven, and then as you can see, it was just starting to turn a little golden brown. I'm going to set the corn aside in a bowl. To the corn that we just took out of the oven and set aside in a bowl, we are going to add the juice of half of a lemon just to kind of brighten it up. To that same bowl with the corn and the lemon juice, we're going to add 1/4 of a cup of grated Parmesan. Once you have the corn, the grated Parmesan, the lemon juice all in there, we're just going to give it a quick toss. Similar to the sweet potatoes, we're going to just cover this and set this aside. And that's another one of our layers for our shepherd's pie. So now that the corn and the sweet potatoes have been mixed together and they're set aside, we're next going to work on the additional 2 layers of the shepherd's pie. I have 1 cup of white rice. We're going to cook the rice, 1 cup of rice, 1 cup of low sodium vegetable broth, 1 cup of water. Bring that rice to a simmer. Then we're going to cover it and bring the heat down to low. Cook it for about 20 minutes. On the stove, I also have 1 large saute pan that I added 2 tablespoons of olive oil to. I'm bringing that to a medium-high heat. My olive oil is nice and fragrant, and it's ready for my shallot to go in. To that shallot that's been sauteing in the olive oil, I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of Calabrian chili paste. I just threw my ground turkey into the saute pan with the shallot and the Calabrian chili. I also added in kosher salt, black pepper, fennel seed, and garlic powder. String time. No, I'm just kidding. As that ground turkey begins to absorb the olive oil and the Calabrian chili, we're going to want to add in about 1/2 cup of white wine. If you don't want to add in wine, you do have that low sodium vegetable broth, which could be substituted. Once my rice was cooked after about 18-20 minutes, I added in 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, tossed that into the rice while the rice was still on the stove, but off the heat, just to melt the butter into the rice and make it a nice buttery rice. After the unsalted butter has been added to the rice, while that rice is still hot, we're adding about 3/4 of a cup of mascarpone cheese to the rice. You just want to continue to mix it while the rice is still warm so that mascarpone has a chance to melt. Once the mascarpone is melted in with the rice, then the last thing that we're waiting for is just for that ground turkey to finish cooking. As that ground turkey continues to cook, you're also going to want to add in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste that we're going to mix in. My ground turkey is about to come off the stove, but before it does, I have a few fresh basil leaves. I'm just going to give them a rough chop, then toss them in with the ground turkey, mix it all together. The turkey is cooked and it is time to assemble our shepherd's pie. I have some unsalted butter here. You just want to make sure that the entire thing is covered so that when we add everything in, nothing sticks and we're good to go. So once the pan is coated, the first layer of the shepherd's pie is going to be the rice that we've mixed with the mascarpone cheese and the unsalted butter. The next layer that we're going to throw in is the ground turkey. Okay, so once the turkey and the rice are in that same sheet pan, you can then toss them together so that bottom part becomes a mixture of both the rice and the ground turkey, and that's the base of the shepherd's pie, and that's what I've just done here. Next, we're going to add in the corn with the Parmesan. Now, if you like this house and you like Parmesan and you have a little bit extra, now is the time when you can add a little bit more grated Parmesan. I'm mixing about 1/2 cup of green peas in with my sweet potatoes. And this is going to be that top layer of the shepherd's pie. Right before we put the shepherd's pie in the oven, I always like to top it off with some chopped walnuts and some chopped basil. It can be a really nice rough chop. We're just going to sprinkle it on top as my shepherd's pie is ready to go in the oven, 425 degrees for about 15 minutes. The shepherd's pie is out of the oven. We're about to go get a piece. It's dinner time, which means it's the perfect time to start plating. I'm about to slice it up. You're gonna wanna slice up the shepherd's pie similar to a lasagna. Guys, I just plated my shepherd's pie. It's dinner time and I am ready to eat. You can hear my dog. He's eating right now too. So everyone in this house is hungry. We've been waiting on this shepherd's pie. Let's get into it. Don't mind my dog that's eating in the background. Why I like this dish so much is the textural differences, the flavoral differences, and having it all kind of come together in this really nice and cohesive way. It's a great dish to make early in the week and have for the rest of the week so that you don't need to worry about dinner as the week goes on. Go try this recipe for yourself. For many more recipes, continue to stay tuned to my channel. In the meantime, please like this video, share, comment, do whatever you want. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.